right, build stuff. Welcome back. So next up here on the alpha stage, we have now Lars, if I'm correct, this app you're going to show us today, this is using serverless components in Azure to resize images so that when you're far away from home, you can make the live video feed of the llamas on your farm scale so it looks like you're home. That's pretty much right?
That's version 2.
That's version 2.
Yeah.
So today you're going to show us the plumbing and how we put it all together, and the llamas come later.
Yeah, this is the 1997 version. You see why.
Was anyone out there resizing images on the web in 1997?
Exactly.
I actually was, and it was horrible. I had VB script on Windows calling Perl to hash out to image magic. So it got a lot better, and to tell us how it got better, please give a big welcome, Lars Klint.
Thank you, Dylan. All right. Oh, we got slides. Excellent. Yeah, so I wasn't completely lying when I said that, but let me explain. Okay. Are you enjoying Build stuff? This is my first time here. And oh, this is crackly. Should I move this? There we go. Ah, that's better. On my what? Yeah, this is 6 years of growth for me, by the way. Hi, online people as well. There'll be something for you too. So yeah, it'll be excellent. So first of all, hi, I'm Lars. Get the plug out the way, sort of. I work for Pluralsight, I'm an MVP, and I have a YouTube channel. Woo! Okay, much more interesting, I have llamas. Yeah, that's my talk, thank you. It's interesting, llamas always, for some reason, just becomes like, oh, llamas, yay. So I just keep putting them on the internet. But no, they are actually llamas on my paddock. They are technically a neighbor's llamas, but they live with me. Now, I always start these talks when I'm not at home or on my own continent with a little bit of a trivia thing. And there's the first bit. Does anyone know where this is? Want to hazard a guess? Well, he's not wrong though. It is, that's Australia. That's 80 minutes from my house. And that's always interesting when you're not in Australia because people go, that's not desert. How does that work? But yeah, you can go skiing in Australia and it's decent, but it's horrifically expensive because you can't do it that many places. So there's your trivia for today about Australia. I have many others, but find me afterwards. Now, I do have a couple of things. Whoa, that's a lot of things. I don't have all those. I do have a few books to get away. So I'm writing a book, which is the hardest thing I've ever done. It's about Azure, and this presentation is kind of pinched from the book, so it's all linked together, right? Manning has given me this code. You can write that down. I'll put it up later again. And I have some Pluralsight stuff for you as well. And the keen-eyed among you may have noticed that down there's a Tim Tam. Does anyone know what Tim Tams are? Not you, Dylan. Or Chris, who's also Australian. No? So they're these, right? And they're chocolate biscuits. And I'll give you a little bit of a bonus feature of them when we hand them out. But I'll give them. But you only get those. Actually, stickers are over there. You can have stickers whenever you want. But the books and the Tim Tams are just when people ask questions, okay? I really like questions, because that means you're listening, and I'm not just talking at you, right? So questions are good. Now, lovely people online, there's 2 ways you can put questions as well. One is using the Twitters. It's not tweeting at Elon this time. Don't do that. You use the hashtag Resizer3000. That'll make sense in just a minute. And put in BuildStuffConf as well if you want. But the Resizer one is the important one. Or you can use the platform, right? So I'm trying on the laptop here. I have myself talking to myself on the screen, but there's also the chat, okay? So if you have questions, I'll put them in there, and I'll try and check them throughout. But we only have 45 minutes, so I'm going to talk a bit faster. Okay, that was all the mechanics, I guess. So why serverless? Does anyone here do serverless development? And now the light's on, I can't actually see you. But anyway, there's a few people. Okay, so who here does Azure serverless? Ooh, there's like 3, 4. Okay, cool. So the rest of you are here because you want to know what it is or because you want to know sort of how to do it, right? And that's awesome because that's like, you're my audience. I don't care about the other ones. They already know it. So no, that's not true. But there's certain reasons why you would use serverless. One is scaling. That's probably my favorite because it's serverless. Not really. It doesn't really mean it's serverless. It means that you use someone else's server. Someone else is administering the server. In this case, Azure, right? But scaling means that you can quickly, well, actually the system will do it for you, scale up more VMs or more resources or whatever it is you're using when you need it. And then when you don't need it, it scales back down again. And it does it all magically. And of course, you pay for it. It's a business. Azure wants to make some money, but it's not much. Right? So scaling is one of the absolute benefits of serverless, and cloud in general, but serverless in particular. Then there's cost effective. And are there any managers in here that's in charge of a budget? Oh, good, excellent. Because I usually tell them to leave the room by this time. Cost effective just means that you can be cost effective, right? It doesn't mean serverless equals cheap. That is hardly ever the case. But if you do it right, it can be very cost effective. And reduce maintenance, because as you'll see, there's very little to do in terms of functionality. We're going to go straight to the business logic. And that's cool, because we love fixing bugs and maintenance. No. And it's robust. Right? It does very few things, and it's managed by someone else that has thousands of engineers dedicated to making sure it doesn't break. So it's extremely robust. You just focus on you and doing your thing. Okay, so we're going to build a thing because we had build stuff, and I thought, let's build an actual thing instead of looking at slides, although there are 2 more slides, 3. But here's the scenario. And now is the way we go back in time a little bit. So a company that sells photography and imaging services, they have a service that lets users send their images via email to an online photo album. And this is the point usually where people go, huh? So yeah, 1997. But it'll make sense. It's to prove a point. But because we have modern cameras, the size of the images gets bigger and bigger, so we need to be able to resize these. And that's why they've come up with this new service called the Resizer 3000, hence the hashtag from before, right? So dear people online, if you want free books and stuff, use the hashtag Resizing 3000, and people in here as well. So, and thanks, Nico, for the logo. I made that half an hour ago because someone down here said I had to. There we go. Presentation at its finest. Not an actual product, of course. So let me explain what we're doing. Oh, and now I can use this. So I bought this. Does anyone know this? The Logitech Spotlight? No? It's fantastic. Look at this. Are you ready? Woo! I know. And it's just an accelerometer, right? But anyway, I like it. We're going to have a blob storage. I've already created that because we don't have so much time. Then we're going to create a logic app, and you may or may not know what that is, that takes some images from an email in Exchange, and it gets the email, the attachment, puts it into blob storage, and then we have an Azure function that resizes it. Pretty simple, right? But that's the whole idea. It's supposed to be simple. Serverless in general is very simple. It's just that some people complicate it by having thousands of them. So that's the architecture. We have a couple of tools, very advanced tools. There's the Azure portal, and there's my Outlook account. I know. There will be a little bit of code, don't worry. And, well, that's it. So now is where things may blow up. Yeah, so anyway, here we go. So here's oh, that worked. Sweet. So here's the Azure portal. Does anyone not know what this is? Has anyone never seen this before? Few people. Okay, cool. So do you use AWS by any chance or anything? It's like the console in AWS, right? It just looks different. It sort of does the same thing. It's where you go into the cloud platform, Azure in this case, and you manage all your resources in a UI. All of this can be done in a console, on SDK, or whatever, but it's not as interesting to show as a demo. So here's my Azure portal. There's a whole bunch of services, which are down here. I've already created a resource group, which is where everything has to live in Azure, and I've created a storage account, which is there. Right, so let me just get the one thing I forgot. The storage account is just storage. Right. It's a little bit different in Azure if you're used to AWS. In AWS, it's usually called an S3 bucket, sort of the very simple thing. In Azure, it's called a storage account, but of course, you have 4 different types of storage in your storage account. Thank you, Azure. We have here, on the left here, a little bit hard to see maybe, but we have containers, file shares, queues, and tables. We're only going to worry about containers or blob containers. Blob being anything you want, as long as it's binary. So we're going to start by creating a container, which is where we're going to put our images into, right? So we create a container, and we'll just call this, what should we call it? Images? Maybe? Or attachments? Let me just hang on. I forgot to put the one thing up. Hang on. Hey? Oh, sorry. If you want to ask questions, by the way, just interrupt. I'm not fast, because I'm going to talk really fast otherwise. Okay, here we go. Aha. So let's call this images. That'll do. Good enough. All this does, it just creates like a folder. Actually, I did that wrong. So what I did was, and I didn't change this. Let me just do that again. So did anyone notice what I didn't tell you about was this public access level, right? So this is private, blob, or container. Basically, how do you want to allow people to access your images in that container? Well, I actually want to just go blob. For this particular example, blob means that if you have the link to that blob, you can access it. So we'll do that. Although you shouldn't just do this by default. Private is usually a good thing because you don't want everybody else to access your blobs necessarily. But are we going to give it a name, aren't we? Okay. There we go. Cool. So we're going to call this one attachments, just to do something different. Because they're going to be email attachments, right? It's very advanced. Create that, and now we have the other container. So it's that simple. It's just a folder, essentially. I'm not actually creating any data in there. It's just like a hierarchy. Okay, that's all we need in the storage account. The next step is to create a logic app. And this is where I go and check if the people have got questions. Nope. All right, I'm looking at myself on the screen. So if you do have, just yell them out, seriously. So does anyone here has ever used or created a logic app for anything? Yeah, I knew you had, Donna. There's a few people. Okay, so a logic app is exactly what it says. It's a bunch of logic that's sort of in an app. It's considered serverless because all you do is create the logic. Right? You don't manage anything around it, really. So an adding one is really simple. And by the way, everything I'm doing today or in this presentation, you can do with a free Azure account as well. So it's like if you want to go play with it, you can. I'm going to choose the build stuff resource group. We're going to give it a name. We should call this Resizer 3000. And then see there's a little tick that comes up right there because this is a universally available, well, it's on the internet, right? So it has to be unique across all of Azure. And then, sorry? Oh God. That's, here, you deserve Tim Tams. That was amazing. That would have ruined the whole thing. Maybe not. Yeah, they're there. Just go up and grab them. Oh God, I keep scratching it. Sorry. And then you're going to choose a region. I'm just going to choose. And by the way, these region drop-downs, they're all different. So some of them are alphabetically ordered. Some are by region. Some of them are by magic. And some are by, I don't know, small kittens. I don't know. They're just all different. So I can never remember where things are. Let's go North Europe. And then here is the serverless part. Standard or consumption. So standard means that you're paying for essentially a VM, sort of, with the servers, and it's always there when you need it, and you pay less per execution, but you pay every month. Whereas the consumption side of thing is what? Every time you see consumption on Azure, that basically means serverless. That's sort of what it is. Serverless is the buzzword that you use to sell it. Consumption is the way that you measure how much you use, right? So consumption just means that we just measure it by how many executions. And because it's a logic app and it's serverless, you get like, I think it's 100,000 executions free a month or something. So if you want to just play with it, you can absolutely do that. And that's it. That's all there is. Just create that. Validate it. All right. Come on. There we go. And these are generally, I mean, as you'll see, it doesn't actually do anything yet, so it's pretty quick to create them. All right. I'm going to ask for questions if there were any. People are like, no, this is amazing. Can't wait to see what happens next. Okay, so I can go to this resource, which is my logic app. And you get this YouTube video for some reason. You can't actually get rid of that. But the idea with the logic app is that you have a trigger. There's always a trigger, exactly one trigger. And then someone says, oh, I know you can do multiple triggers. I say, technically you can, but don't, because you're really going to shoot yourself in the foot, or both feet. Have a trigger, and that could be like, oh, just happened to be when a new email is received in Outlook.com, which is what we're going to do, right? But it could also be like when a new tweet is posted. I do this workshop where we build a llama scraper, basically scraping llama images off Twitter. That would use that trigger, and there's a whole bunch of others. So something that triggers the flow, triggers the app workflow, logic app workflow. So, and then there's a whole bunch of templates, which are nice to look at. I don't know of anyone that's ever used any of them. because there are always scenarios that you go, oh, receive an AS2 payload and reply with an asynchronous or synchronous MDN to sender. I have no idea what that means. Right? It seems so specific that I can't imagine anyone would ever use it. So we'll just click on our trigger. And then we have to sign in to Outlook because we have to connect, in this case, my Outlook account with the Logic app. So I'm going to connect that one. See if it'll let me in. I may have to, oh no, there we go. Sometimes I have to receive a text message or something. And that just creates a connection string. That's all it does. So now this particular Logic app has a connection string to my Outlook account. That's it. And then we can continue now. So now we have our trigger set up, but now we need to tell it what to do. All right, so we have a few things here that we can do. Okay, so importance, normal, that's fine. How often do you want to check? Oh, every 3 minutes, that's fine. I actually want to add some parameters. So you can add the fields that you need for your logic. I'm going to say only with attachments, because I don't care about anything else. Remember, this is a very, very highly sophisticated service where you send emails to this. And then I'll just click away from it and you get this. And obviously you can say true or false. So you can also say only with not attachments. Yes, we only want the attachments. Make sure I get everything right. Yep. Okay. And then I always save it. For some reason it doesn't autosave. Maybe that'll come. So the resize of 3000 now has a trigger. So we can send something to it, but it needs to do something with the thing. And if you remember from the architecture slide that I had just before, the thing that we want to do is we want to add it into the blob storage. Right, so we want to take this image so we can do something with it. So we want to move it to somewhere. So in here you can search for blob, and it'll give you all of the different operations that are available for blob storage. Sorry, click, or that has the word blob, right? So in this case, I want to create a block blob, but you can also do all these other things. Get available access policies if that's what you want. So I'm going to create a block blob, which is another way of saying I want to create a file, and that file is going to be the one that's the attachment. Right, so I'm going to copy it to that. Okay, so now we have to just open another tab because we need words, namings. So I'm going to call this something, some name. It doesn't matter what you call it, by the way. And let me just go into here. So we need to authenticate with this, with the storage account. So this is the name of it, build stuff storage. I can copy that over. We just call it build stuff storage connection. Authentication type. Normally, if you did this for real, you would use the, it's hard to tell, but the managed identity, the bottom connection or authentication type. Managed identity in Azure is the way to authenticate between Azure services. But to sort of demonstrate this a little bit quicker, I'm going to use an access key, which is like a magic key password, right? And then I have to put in the Azure storage account name, that one, and then the key. And the key I get from access keys. And then for some reason I have to show it to copy it. But anyway, if you want to write it down, no? Okay. All right, and that's all you have to do, right? So now I've authenticated with Outlook, so I can get emails or other things, and I've now authenticated with my storage account as well. So I've got two connections, right? And then that now gives us a drop-down. So we say, well, we're going to use that connection setting. And the path, so it'll actually give us the two folders that we now created because I've screwed the first one up. And we're going to call this one in the attachments. And then we have to give it a name of the blob. And this is where it gets a bit interesting. And I know there are software developers here that go, hey, this is not code. It's not really developing. It is. Shut up. So you can write all this in JSON if you're really masochistic. So all of these fields are now available as variables, essentially. They call them dynamic content, but they're essentially variables. Variables, that's hard to say. So, okay. So the name of the blob, let me just make sure I get this right. 2 seconds. Oh, right, yeah. So, if I then go in here and so I want to use the attachment name, right? Because you're going to give it a name when you send the file. And it's the attachment's name. Now, see what happens when I click on this. It changed it to a for each. right? So it's a little bit of smarts and go, well, hang on, attachments, there could be more than one. So I'm going to assume that there could be, and I'm going to give you a for each instead. So now, because I chose the attachments, it goes, oh, you want to iterate over the attachments. So that's why it changed it for me. So I still have to do this bit here, click on that. So it's still there with the attachment's name. So it sort of did all that for me, so that, and there you go. It gives you a little hint to say, hey, I just helped you. Got it. And so that's the name we can give it. You can give it whatever name you want, right? And then the content of it, well, again, no, it's actually not actually current content. We can search for it here, attachments, content, right there, because we're iterating over it, right? So we get the content of that particular attachment. And then, just for kicks and shittles, we can add the content type, because we may use that some other day, right? We're not going to use it today, but because we have it, attachment, content type, well, let's just add it. So it's a bit nicer. Right, and save it. So now we have a logic app. It's exciting, isn't it? I know. But what we can do now is where we can send an email, see if it works, right? So I'm going to send myself an email. Here we go. Send myself an email. me@larsklint.com. And we're going to call this build stuff image or something. And then I'm going to attach an image. That's something I prepared earlier. Which would you like? The llama. There's 3 llamas. Jeepers. First one, okay. That is the one that's meandering through, frolicking, I should say, through a meadow full of cheese. What? It is. So I send that. It sends an email. Minimize this. And then we want to run this. Now, it does say it runs every 3 minutes, but I'm not going to wait for that. I'm just going to press run. Right? So what now? It should show us. This is the beauty of live demos. I'm sure it'll work. It'll be fine. Oh, I got the email now. So I've sent myself an email. And then it's just going to build it up. It spins up a VM essentially in the background. It puts all the code on that, and then it runs it. And then we'll just, come on. There we go. And we go. Oh, something broke. Okay. So we got a green tick up there saying, yep, I checked the email. And did it actually get any emails? Yeah, so there's a body. So why did it break? See, this is always interesting, isn't it? So here's all the data. Okay. So, yeah, it broke. Let's see what broke. What did I mess up? Unable to process template language expression in action, create blob inputs at line. Oh, that's not helpful. The provided values of type null. Oh, so it's not actually passing it through. Okay, so anyone, any ideas? What am I doing wrong? Not everybody at once. Say again? Stack Overflow. Are you saying that it is a Stack Overflow? Or are you saying go to Stack Overflow? Did you know they made a keyboard? Have you seen that? The Stack Overflow keyboard? I actually bought it. It just has a Stack Overflow key and a C and a V. That's it. And it's a functional keyboard. Anyway, I digress. Okay, so let's go back to the designer. Hopefully I get this to work. And we'll see if we can figure out what have we messed up. Did I need to include the attachment? I think I did in the first step. Only with attachments. Yes. See? That's why we have such an audience full of people. See, include attachments. You're absolutely right, Nico. Thank you. So that's why we had a null, right? Didn't even need to go to Stack Overflow. So, yeah. Should I include it? Yeah, we should absolutely include it, right? So I just said, just find the emails with attachments. I didn't say pass on the attachment. So that's why it broke. All right, let's try that again. I may have to send myself another email. Let's just see what happens. But it's quite, I mean, the error message was actually not bad, right? It was quite, it said, you have null. You didn't send me anything. So we'll just see if I get anything. Otherwise, I'll just send myself a new email. You can have a sticker. While I do that, I can check lovely people online. Nope, they're not actually. Come on, people. Write something. There's 371 of you. Surely someone has something. All right, so let's see if anyone on Twitter, any questions? Oh, Oh, utterly nonsensical tweet. That's almost worth, I don't know, something. I love books. No. Hey again? Absolutely. Email me whatever you want. I have ways. Yeah, okay, so, oh, there we go. So did it actually find anything? Did, I think. Nope, content. Let's just have a look in the storage container here and see if we got anything in there in the attachments, right? Hey, max rest default. That's not what it was called, was it? Anyway, what was it called? Hang on, desktop, images. Nope, it was called DALI something, 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 long name. Okay. Do we want to open this image? Who else sent me stuff? Ooh. Oh no, never mind. I'll just check. This is fun. Oh, it's a test image. There we go. So you can send it and it'll work. I mean, it might not work after this presentation, but so Vititas? Tautas? Oh God, sorry, I just butchered your name completely. But someone sent me. Could be online as well. Let's just. No, I'm not going to open it. I can just do it here. Oh no, it looks sort of. Oh, hacker man. Oh, that's very nice. Let's go with that. That's fine. I'm happy with that. Cool. All right. So, don't you just love live coding? Oh, geez. All right. I'm going to run out of time. This is too much fun. So, the next step is that we want to resize this image. Right now, it's HackerMan, so we're going to resize HackerMan. Actually, we're not. We're going to resize another image, but and we're going to use an Azure function for that. So now we've created our logic app. We're now going to create an Azure function. That Azure function is going to look at the blob container on the storage account, and then take it, resize it, and put it in a different container. So the first thing we need to do is we need to create another container. Yay! Because we're going to put it somewhere else. Right. We don't have to, but we're going to. So, ooh, thanks, Chris. Now everybody's emailing me. Okay, resized images. Again, I'm just going to have anonymous read access for the blob as well. We're going to create that, and now we've got the storage container, right? So the next step, as I said, is we're going to create a function. Now, function apps. So Azure Functions is the same as Lambda function on AWS, if that's your thing. And they do a thing. That's why it's called a function, right? And they all live inside function apps. A function app is another way of saying a VM, right? But marketing. So I'm going to create a function app. Here again, I'm going to put it into build stuff. This will be build stuff function. Oops, function app. There's a lot of F. Yeah, good. And then we can run it through Docker if we wanted to, but we're not going to. I don't have a Docker image to run. I'm going to choose .NET because that's my thing. .NET. You're going to choose version. I'm actually going to leave it on 6. Last time I looked at it. There weren't no 7. So, with the chance of it breaking again, let's just do it 6. And I'm going to put that also in North Europe. Oh, that was alphabetical too. You can choose your operating system, whatever you think is a good thing. And then this, I just want to spend a moment on this. This is one of the things that is often ignored. Because it says consumption, serverless, people go, yeah, it's Azure Functions, of course it's serverless. Off we go, right? There's 2 more options. There's Functions Premium. The main feature of that, there's a few, is that you pay to always have what's called a hot instance. You always have a VM running in the background that's ready to take your function. So if you had a really, really important function that only ran like once a day, but it had to run like, make sure it run, then you would use Function Premium, for example. Or if you want to scale really fast and make sure you never run out of compute space, or compute power, essentially, you use that as well. And then there's my favorite, which is the third one. And that's the one that's pretty much always ignored. Like, I've done a whole 15-minute talk just on how to use that in this scenario, right? I think it's that important. This is falling off. There we go. So the app service plan is, again, another word for VM. But what you normally run on an app service plan is your app services or your web applications, right? So that could be your websites. pretty common. It could be your APIs. It could be your Docker containers. But they run on an app service plan. Now, the cool thing is that if you have an app service plan, and most companies that use Azure have many app service plans, you're already paying for them. You already have them sitting there. Why not use them, right? So I could choose the app service plan here, and I could make it run on an existing or a new app service plan that I have. So for example, I don't have any on this subscription, but that means that I don't have to pay extra to run the function because I'm already paying for the app service plan. It's a very, very cool little detail that is often overlooked. But anyway, we're going to choose consumption because it's serverless, because it says so. And then go to hosting. I can't remember what this is here. So it needs a storage account because all the code it runs and the metadata, etc., has to be somewhere, has to live somewhere. So when the VM spins up to run your function, it gets the stuff from somewhere. So I'm just going to use the one I already have, build stuff storage, and we can choose networking. These are premium features, network injection, and you can also have them running on a specific VNet if you have a function, a premium function. Sometimes that's important. I'm actually just going to go straight to here because now we're running out of time. Doesn't matter. The function app is just a container to run your functions. It's not where the actual function logic is. So let's just set up a function app. It's pretty quick, usually. Any questions? Anyone want to shout? Yes, sir. Good question. So the question is, well, what if someone sent me 6,000 emails, Chris? Who knows how many I've got now. How does the thing know to not spin up 6,000 VMs is what the question is essentially. There's smarts in there that just keeps processing them, right? And when that runs out of processing power, whatever the VM is that's powering it, because there's ways that you can choose that too if you wanted to, then it starts scaling them up and putting more on. But you might have scaling rules as well. We get into the whole configuration of it. So you're saying, well, I only want maximum of 8 instances because that's my budget. And then, oh, well, it'll break, right? Or it'll, not process all of them. So you have those choices to make. And it's not always that simple. Definitely not. That's a good question, though. Okay. So now we have our function app. Yay! Now we can build a function inside of it. Make sure here. All right. So I am going to go to functions because we only have about 10 minutes. So let me just do this, and then we'll do some questions as well. I'm going to create a function. And now, big disclaimer, I would never, ever do it this way, right? This is just to demonstrate how to do a function. I would probably do this in VS Code. That's my tool of choice. And all of these features and functions are available through VS Code. And I'll show you in just a second why that's important. Actually, I'll show you now, because there it is. It says Develop in Portal, VS Code, or any editor, right? If I choose Develop in Portal, which I'm going to do now, it means that you can't actually edit it in VS Code. You can see it, but you can't edit it because the master is here, this end. Whereas if you push it up from VS Code, then this is just essentially a reading. So every time you make a change in VS Code, it'll overwrite everything on the portal, right? Whereas if I develop in the portal, I can't change anything in VS Code, but not without breaking a whole bunch of stuff. So please don't ever do this unless you're demoing to someone or just want to try it out. Learn how to use VS Code. It's just it takes a bit longer, and I'm running out of time. Then I have to choose a trigger as well, because functions have triggers as well. The very, very, very common trigger, that's why it's at the top, is the HTTP trigger, which is just a URL that you can use to call your function. Now, they're authenticated most likely, but that's usually all it is. Now, we're going to do a slightly different trigger, which is down here. I don't know if you've guessed what it might be. Actually, I can just click on it here. Type blob. There's an Azure blob storage trigger. And what that does is that as soon as there is a file in a particular container that we defined, it triggers the function, right? So sometimes that's useful. And then we can call it something, whatever you want to call it. This is the Resizer 3000. See, I did it right. And then there's a path here, and the path is to the container. So what did we call the container? It's attachments, wasn't it? Yeah. So we want to update this We could update this after the fact as well. It's not a big deal. And then the connection is all on the configuration of the actual storage, of the function app. Okay, so now I'll create my function. Resize of 3000. I'll come here in a second. So there it is. Now this is very basic, as it should be. Azure Functions, I keep saying this, but it's so important, that is, they do one thing, and there's no other logic to it, right? It should be super, super simple. My rule of thumb is that if your function code is not visible on your screen, I'm not saying change it to 6-point font, but if you can't see all the code on your screen, there's something wrong, right? You have to do something, because it's too big. It's not always true, but as a rule of thumb. But let's just have a look at the integration part of it here. So this will show us what happens with our function. Cool. Yep. So we have the trigger, which is our Azure blob storage, and you can see there's a parameter there called myBlob, so we're going to use that in just a second. Then there's the actual function called resize to 3000, and then there's an output. The output is where we want. We know this doesn't know this, but we know that's where we want our resized image to go out. So I'm going to choose Azure Blob Storage again, and the blob output parameter, show output blob, that's fine. And we're going to then give it the name of the path to the other one, which is called resized images, right? Resized images. Oh, did I capitalize that or not? I can't remember now. No. So that's our output. And then that now becomes a parameter in the code. You'll see that in just a second. That's why it says blob parameter name. It's an out variable. So if you're a .NET developer or C#, I'm sure that makes sense. I'm not sure in other languages. I've drunk a lot of Microsoft Kool-Aid. That's where I'm comfortable. But let's just have a look at the function now. So I'm just going to update it. There we go. So the resize of 3000 function has now, come on, that code, right? Doesn't do anything. So if you call it, it just logs the information to go, yep, I did a thing. Doesn't actually do a thing. So if we insert a blob into that container, so our input container where it comes from the emails, then that will trigger and log saying, hey, there was a file. Not very useful. Instead, and I'm going to copy paste this. Nope, not that. Hang on, it's here. Sorry. I'm going to paste this code from Word. I know, don't judge me. I did tell you I drank a lot of Microsoft Kool-Aid. So I'll just paste that in. Okay. So what this does is very simple. I left the log in there. I'm going to use the image. Again, that's my blob, not your blob, my blob. That's the input parameter, right? So that's what we're going to process. We load that into memory. We mutate it, we resize it, and we made it 100 by 100. Yes, I know. If you realized what the logo said before, Nico would like this. It does say skew every image, right? So that's what we're doing. I'm aware this is not a perfect resizing. I did say it was 1997. The idea with this was to make it into thumbnails, right? So the scenario was, hey, there's a website that shows you all your images in your folder, and here's the thumbnails. And usually in 1997 or 2001, they were square, right? And they were wrong, but they were square. So, and then we save it as a JPEG to the output blob. So that's our output parameter that we did before. Now, why won't this work, do you think? What am I missing? People are like, oh God, we got to think now, jeepers. Why don't you think this, well, why might this not work? Something to write it something? No. Why is it, it's much bigger on my screen. Oh, it's because there's all the Chrome. Hang on, let me see if I can make it a bit bigger. Can't, ooh, jeepers. No, okay. I'm using that 6 labels image sharp library. Where does that come from? Right? So if we were in Visual Studio, we were doing a, like say, in my case, C# application, I'd go, oh, import NuGet packages and it'd be good. There's a function. I don't have a NuGet button, right? So what you can do is that you can upload files. So you would put this in your VS Code project, of course. And I can, no, we don't want those. Oops, sorry, wrong one. So I can upload a function.proj, and there's a bug in this, but I don't think they fixed it. So what I can do now is I've uploaded it, I'll save it, and I can have a function.proj that defines nothing. This is the bug. It is there. This is the file I uploaded. So again, another reason not to use the developer portal. But this is what it should have, right? So this is just XML that says, where do I go and find this package? So don't forget that, otherwise it won't work. All right, so we'll save that. And then you can test it and run it and whatever, but we have, how much? We've got 4 minutes. So I'm just going to try now and send myself another email. Yes, sir. Target framework. It doesn't really matter. But you're right, yeah. If you want it to be like production ready, yeah. But the .NET standard is implemented in .NET 6 as far as I'm aware. But you're right. The main thing is this part here, the package reference, right? So let me try and send myself another email, unless someone has already done it. Oh, see, done it, so sent emails. That was too soon. You have to send it now. It's all right, I'll send myself one. It's all good. So, test image 2, 6, or whatever we're up to now. And I'll add another file. And we're going to do this one. That's from the book, actually. It's a pink llama sitting in a field combing. Oh, what is it? An alpaca with pink hair sitting in a field combing its fur with a golden brush. These are all generated by AI. If you've never used DALL-E image generator, and there's a few other that I like it as well. It's hilarious. You can generate anything. Right, send myself that. And hopefully, sending. Come on. It's a very big llama. I mean, alpaca. So writing a book's the hardest thing I've ever done. One of the things I've wanted to do was make it not really boring. I thought that was a great idea. But it does mean that I have to come up with a whole bunch of things like, what companies do I use for my scenarios? And one of them is called Alpaca My Bags. Hence the alpaca with a brush, because it's hair care products for alpacas. Yes, it's tragic. So let's see if that worked. Ideally, that should show up down here and go, oh, it's going to run. Is it running? Hold that thought. Functions. Come on. It's enabled. Yep. Okay. Oops. Let's click on the code. So let's see if, first of all, did we get an attachment? Yep. So that came in there, right? That's, oh, hang on, Pixel. No, sorry. Ooh, it hasn't got it yet. Who sent the Pixel one? Was that you, Chris? All right. Can I open it? Oh, good. Ooh. Just making sure, right? Okay. This is the beauty of live demos. Let's see if it got anything. So what you can do with the logic apps, you can go and see, well, what has it already run? It's down there. Succeeded 1134. No, so it hasn't run just yet. So I'm just going to run it. Maybe it hadn't triggered yet, and we'll see if it actually finds anything. Come on. Or did someone break it? Maybe it was the hacker man that broke the whole thing. Come on. Maybe? Please? Refresh. All right, 1149. Yes. Okay, let's see if we... Bear with me. It'll be worth it. Storage account. See, Alpaca My Bag storage. Build stuff storage. I've also got banning books, which is underground banned technical books. Containers, attachments. Right, there we go. And Alpaca with ping. So it's in there, right? So that bit of it worked, okay? Let's see if the other part of it worked as well. Did it actually resize it? So we have resized images. Hey, and I did just say, just give it a GUID, right? I wasn't too concerned with the file name. And it just inserted it. So it doesn't have what's it called? A file name extension, that's one. So it's just like this. So it'll download it. And then I got to give it an extension. I need to fix this part of the demo, I think. But anyway, there we go. So if I open that, hey, it's an itty bitty alpaca. It worked, right? So I know it's a little bit underwhelming, maybe. Oh, geez. Yeah. My point with this is that you can build serverless really quickly, and you can make something useful out of it. Now, I could go to town on this, and I could make it not skew it. I could make it process all the different attachments that come in. I could make it, look much better than it is. But we only have 45 minutes, and I want to sort of go from the start. So that's where we're at. Now, I did promise you other things. Not that damn loco, Nico. So we had a question. I know I'm just a minute over time. I apologize. I'm keeping you from cake, maybe? Not sure. I just want to see if there were any interesting questions coming on Twitter. Someone tweeted a dog. Okay, sure. Fair enough. So, okay. Oh, online. Something. Okay, something. Well then, in that case, it's easy. So there was a really good question. Well, you get timestamps and you're going to get a book because you saved the resizer. Imagine if we'd done a 300. Jeez. And there was really good questions here. You'll get a book. You get a book. And what was the last question? There was one question up there somewhere from the back, I think. Anyway, come see me after, you two. And that will be it. If you do want manning stuff cheaper, that's it. I'm going to put this as well. That's my job. I have to show you that. But if you want 30-day free access to ProSite Premium, that's developer training, like 7,000 courses of it or something. I think we have a few authors in here, actually, that are on. Bart, you got ProSite course, Nico? No? Oh, there you go. No? Not yet. There we go. But yeah, it's still a number 642. Yeah. Now, I'll put this in the Pine platform as well, the actual details as well, so don't worry too much about putting it on your phone right now. But that's all I had. 47 minutes I used. I apologize, but thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you, Lars. All right, we have a break. We're back here at 12:05 with Dr. Joe Perez talking about the driving decisions with data. Grab a cup of coffee, folks. We'll see you back here in a few minutes.
And have stickers.
Oh yeah, we have stickers. Are they bamboo stickers?
Yeah, there's bamboo stickers, and there's a really important
If you want to show everyone how green you are, there are actual bamboo stickers that Lars has not brought all the way from Australia in an airplane on us.
I forgot. The most important thing is that if you don't put a green card in the bucket out there, your mum doesn't love you.
Also, the llamas will get you. They will find you.
Death metal llamas.